Welcome to Matt's Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for taking time out of your day to stop by. I'm always grateful. Let me just start with China. I wrote again over the weekend, China must fix its economy despite military show. I was talking about the Dongfeng 21D, which is the Chinese riposte to the pivot to Asia's blinding attack component. I spoke about the fact that many commodity-producing presidents of Maduro, Kabila, Zuma were all beating a path to Xi Jinping's door. And I'm saying some African countries like Angola are loading the balance sheet with debt because this unprecedented and disjunctive slowdown is increasing regime change risks. And in that scenario, the regime will throw everything trying to avoid the change. It might not be in the national interest. And I was saying the problem with this strategy is if the commodity markets do not rebound, they could end up like South Sudan, which at the last count had debts on the balance sheet of $4.1 billion versus zero in 2011 and very little to show for it. I was saying the commodity markets move in broad sweeps. Those hoping for a Hail Mary pass and betting their countries on that pass look to me like they are making a bad bet with potentially outsized tail risks. As Nassim Taleb points out, debt increases tail risk, whether it's personal, corporate, or governmental. A rise in debt, he warns, implies nothing less than a rise in the risk of catastrophe. Jamie McGeever, the rise and fall of China's FX reserves. They've been eroded a little, but they're still plentiful. And China's stock rescue tab surges to $236 billion, and that's according to Goldman Sachs. I like this tweet, Bond Vigilantes, US velocity of money remains around historic lows despite record monetary stimulus and a tight labour market. That might well be true, but interestingly, the velocity of price action in the markets is unprecedented and off the charts. Home Thoughts, the little one Hannah, who is 9 years old now, told me, "Today, Dad, is my first day at senior school." I looked at her a little askance, and I said, "You better keep up your swimming," because she and I had such a fabulous time with her American cousins, Alia and Mikhail, in the sea at Diani. She was very brave because there was this premonition of El Nino. And I was a little bit worried because not too far away from where we were staying, a number of students from up country here had died because of the waves. Let me put up a couple of photographs. You can see her in the sea. It's the early evening, the Indian Ocean just outside where we were staying. And then let me put up a photograph of her and her cousins from Chicago on top of the boat as we sort of went up and down, rather gently up and down the coast. Political reflections, shut up, Hissene Habre shouted at the clerk as the indictment was read according to images transmitted on state broadcaster RTS. Chad's Habre dragged into court as war crimes trial resumes, and you can see he's being dragged in this photograph that was shared with me via Twitter. And a lot of talk about the refugees, and I went back to a comment Colin Powell made about Iraq, and he made this comment to George Bush: "You break it, you own it. You are going to be the proud owner of 25 million people. You will own all their hopes, aspirations, and problems. You'll own it all," he told George Bush. And if you think about it, it's wars and civil wars, interventions which have created this refugee flux, which is something of biblical proportions. The Independent is saying, in an era of violence, 9 civil wars are raging. None shows any signs of ending. People cannot go home. The great waves of refugees will continue. Gulf nations are expanding the Yemen war after their worst troop loss. I referred to that previously. Al Arabiya English tweeted that Bahrain's king said, "My own sons will be sent to help the coalition forces." defend Yemeni legitimacy. Qatar sent 1,000 troops to Yemen, backed by more than 200 armoured vehicles and 30 combat helicopters. Yemen did not turn out very well for General Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt, who intervened there as well. Put up a photograph of him in a photo with Nasser, Sadat, Ali Sabri and Hussein al-Shafei. And not many are heeding that particular warning, it seems. I like this photograph from Le Monde Live, Conference de Presse de François Hollande, a rather grand-looking room for his press conference. China has held a grand ceremony in Lhasa to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Tibet's autonomy. And I wrote about this in December 2013 when I described the tinderbox at the periphery, the Chinese periphery, as being the tinderbox. I see the pivot to Asia as the encirclement of China, then the shrinking of its operating theatre, and then lighting the tinderbox that is the periphery. I was talking about Xinjiang, Tibet, is similarly, part of that peripheral risk. Currency markets, when I came in this morning, the euro was at 121.15, but now at 111.58. Japanese yen was at 119.01, it's now at 120.02. Swissy, I haven't checked again. The pound is much stronger, 153.92. The Australian is at 0.6984. India rupee 66.695. South Korean won 11.9928 last time I checked, but it dropped to 1208.72 earlier, the weakest level since July 2010. Rial 383.74. Egyptian pound 783.06, and the rand, when I looked earlier this morning, because I've had a very nice lunch and a rather late one, we were at 1396.52. Let me put up a 1 month chart of the dollar index. It's a bit bifurcated, extremely strong against the commodity currencies, and not so strong against, and strong now again against the euro. I'll put up a 1 month chart of the euro dollar. I think, Draghi's dragged that lower. He's done some good work on that front, because it certainly was becoming, as it were, a new gold, and he probably wanted to stop that. Glencore to sell as much as $2.5 billion of shares and has suspended its final dividend. Debt reduction plan represents a significant about face for Glencore after the chief financial officer, Steve Kalmin, said less than 3 weeks ago that the company could walk and chew gum, meaning it could protect its all-important credit rating and pay its dividends at the same time. The market has taken this well, but it's at a tremendous cost for the Zambia and the DRC, where these production cuts are going to come from. 3rd of November 2014, I wrote about how the commodity supercycle is dead in the water, and I think that's what this Glencore story is all about. Gold, let me put up a 3 month chart. Let me check where we're trading now, 1122.08. Crude oil is at a big bounce today. US light crude at 45.75. Holger, this is it from day before yesterday, Turkish lira hits fresh lifetime low. I think it's still a sell, because I don't see how Erdogan is going to cut a deal here. Very interesting piece about Africa. The spirit of Africa's people will transform the continent, says Ben Okri. The 21st century will reveal the true resilience of the African spirit. The African Renaissance will be like no other. It will not be a Western or an Eastern or a Northern one. It will be a rebirth, a regeneration into itself. What will it look like? I see flashes of it in the Benin bronzes, fragments of it in Nyerere's Ujamaa, in Ubuntu. Sometimes I see a building shaped with the magic of the circle that takes the idea of the ancestral hut to a cosmic plane. Sometimes a line in Okigbo, a proverb in Achabe, an ideal. In Ngugi, the inflection of a Zulu song, as though a dance, the yearning in a Malian melody. A sunset over Kilimanjaro, beautiful piece. You must go and read it. It's on Rich Web's, the link. He says, this is the moment in which Africa's road is famished and perfectly poised for a new destination. And then he put up this photograph by Cherry Samba, part of the Beauty Congo exhibition at the Fondation Cartier, and see who you recognize in that particular photograph. Moving on with the commodity markets, I said, the unwinding of the super cycle in commodities changes everything in Africa, and I said that 31st of August. Zambia is considering currency controls to stem the kwacha's decline, and it was this which trashed most sub-Saharan African currencies yesterday. Zambian President Edgar Lungu may consider imposing exchange controls to stem the kwacha's free fall if other measures fail. The President cannot allow a national currency to collapse because of a false belief in a free market economy fixing themselves even when things are clear that the market won't fix itself. The President could intervene through the Treasury, of course, to allow the central bank to regulate if the markets don't behave properly. There are exchange controls as a measure. Kwacha is down 25% this quarter, the most among more than 150 currencies monitored by Bloomberg. Traded at 990 on Monday in Lusaka. And Chikwanda, who's the finance minister, said in a September 3rd interview, they don't help, they actually accentuate the difficulties. Even the little forex we have would be taken out if we have control of capital movement. You create panic. It's not a conducive environment. It's a recipe for getting the country backward. And I think he's absolutely right. So very, very challenging. Kwacha is down 27% this quarter. They sold Eurobonds at a yield of 9.37%, highest ever for an African issuer. Yields on those securities are now at 11%. Glencore's move to halt 26% of Zambia's copper output is not going to be helpful. For Zambia, Glencore's move is a shocker, said Oliver Sassa. Maybe just the beginning as other mining companies consider following suit, following slump in commodity prices. The copper suspension is starting immediately, said the Glencore CEO Ivan Glazenberg. And I wrote about this currency bloodbath on the 8th of June when I said sub-Saharan African currency bloodbath, and I sort of predicted what was going to happen. The South African all-share is down 1.85% year to date. Dollar Rand, let me put up a 6-month chart. It looks like it's going to cross 15 this year. EGX 30, down 19.71%. That's Egypt year to date. Nigeria, down 13.28% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index down 7.38% year to date. Safaricom still has room for growth, 15 years on, says Bob Collymore in today's Business Daily. We're on the cusp of a new era for Safaricom, he says, and we celebrate 15 years of operation in October. If you need to check their share price, it's on Rich Wrap-Ups. Have a look at the interview I did with Bob after his full year results. BAT, very strong yesterday, up daily maximum of 9.91%, remains down 13.87% year to date, but traded about 2.7% of its shares yesterday. INM surged to 10.28% yesterday on the news that it was to buy out 100% of Gyro Bank. I think that will prove a smart piece of business on the part of INM, and I'm sure on the part of the Gidumal family. Kenya shilling, which has been all over the shop, was last trading at 105.38. That's interesting. It's a bit of a rebound, long overdue. Nairobi all shares down 10.915% year to date, but has rebounded 5.52% since closing at a 2015 low on the 27th of August. The Nairobi all share looked through the noise yesterday of the shilling, rallied 0.74%. NSE 20 was up 1.45% on strong heavy volume, as I said. So Uchumi, interestingly, up 28.57% since announcing the appointment of a substantive CEO on August 20. Atlas Development and Support Services now down 59.75% year to date. That's all about the extractive industry. They're in ICU at the moment. INM we already spoke about. KCB up 5.11% over 2 sessions. Bamburi Cement has been a strong share, has rallied 9.677% since releasing those better than expected first half results I spoke about. Once again, thank you for stopping by. It's certainly interesting times, and I really appreciate the fact that you take the time to come by. Thank you.